Welcome back to the show. Don't forget to subscribe to True Wives Stories and give this episode a thumbs up. It really does help us bring you more content like this. Now, let's dive in. Season 19's tell-all special of Sister Wives rocked the fandom, and Christine Brown is at the helm. She's not pulling punches, particularly when it comes to Robin and Cody. Since the one-on-one interview started, feelings have run hot. Cody is confronting his past, so are the women who used to stand with him. Christine specifically is in the news with her tough honesty. Christine admitted that she now wishes she had never been with Cody. Once he outright said that he loved Robin more than any of the other wives, Christine outlined how much that had hurt. She explained years of putting his needs before hers, particularly when seeing the children visit, and neglecting her own desires altogether. In hindsight, she apologized to herself for wasting so much time trying to see things work. In part 4 of the tell-all, Christine made statements that stunned both Robin and Cody. One major revelation came when Cody talked about a secret girlfriend he had in college, the time he said he was disconnected from their faith. But Christine viewed this as more than a confession. She saw it as a sign that he could be hiding even more. What irked her even more was that he informed Robin of this secret girlfriend during their early years of marriage, something which he never mentioned to the other wives. That amount of closeness indicated to Christine and Suki, the hostess, that Robin and Cody's affair might have progressed further than people realized earlier. Christine even wondered if they had already become physically intimate or were pregnant before marriage. When Robin was asked about this rumor, she categorically denied it. She informed Suki that she and Cody never had even a touch of physical affection prior to their engagement. Their first kiss, she said, was in 2010 at their spiritual wedding ceremony, and it was unromantic, awkward. She further said that any kissing prior to that was discreet and innocent, more a soft, church-permissible gesture in front of their pastor. In spite of this, Christine was dubious, opining the manner in which Cody acted towards Robin, particularly how comfortable he was with entering her bedroom early in the marriage, didn't make sense. To her, it all indicated there was a deeper relationship than they were admitting. But Christine wasn't the only one sharing her truth. Janelle Brown also took to the tell-all stage to face her past. On her one-on-one with Suki, she didn't mince words about how she feels about Cody and Robin. She was frustrated at the way Cody always blames his ex-wives for the collapse of the family. Even when it was queried whether he loved Robin more than the others, he turned defensive and angry. Janelle reported that she feels Cody shows signs of being a narcissist. She told him he had a habit. He would emotionally hurt his wives and then attempt to win them back over with affection and sweet talk. She didn't outright call him a narcissist, but did say she sees enough red flags to think it's a pretty good bet. Janelle also made it explicit that she doesn't care for Robin and Cody anymore and has no desire to remain friends with them. That chapter is done for her. Towards the end of the special, Cody and Robin reminisced about the moment they first met. Both of them said it was love at first sight. Cody even teared up, stating he felt God's hand leading him, and with God on his side, he was unbeatable. That time caused the other wives to think about the early dynamics of the relationship. Janelle conceded that if she had foreseen all this, she would never have become a part of the family. She stated that the year-long courtship period between Robin and Cody was a mistake, one that brought imbalance right from the beginning. Though she still appreciates what they all created, she has no delusions about what failed. Christine gave more insight into Cody and Robin's beginnings as well. She explained that though she also had a romantic relationship with Cody at some point, they kept it to themselves. Robin and Cody, however, seemed to parade theirs, or at least keep the extent of it from everybody else. That secrecy, Christine said, felt like a betrayal. To her, it was clear Cody had fallen hard for Robin, and even though he insists he never meant to leave his other wives behind, his actions said otherwise. And that's where things stand, raw, emotional, and real. The Sister Wives Tell-All has turned into a platform for truth, and the truth, it seems, is more complicated than any of them expected. After a single revelation, the floodgates opened. Before the very last minutes of Sister Wives Season 19 could even hit the air, a tempest of confession broke out, altering the course for good. One of the Faller wives, once deeply devoted to a spiritual marriage, now broken, came forward with nothing remaining to guard. Not the past, not the facade of love, and certainly not a man who never met her halfway. As the emotional wreckage of this most tragic season to this point landed, she found her voice, and she was not holding back. This was not about reliving past wounds. This was about taking back a story that had long been edited around someone else's comfort level. In a stark and honest concluding chapter of the one-on-one interviews, she lifted the years of silence. The price of unilateral loyalty, always the one to give way, finally became real. For years she had put his emotions first, framed her responses in terms of his endorsement, gauged every encounter with her children in terms of his transitory presence. And at what price? Everything that made her whole. The unraveling wasn't instantaneous, it was a gradual disintegration. The warm gestures ceased, the interest waned. Increasingly, she found herself carrying the emotional and practical burden of their joint family by herself, while he edged deeper into someone else's sphere. But it wasn't distance that stung, it was secrecy. A quiet but pointed fury rose when her former partner revealed a romantic relationship from his younger years. Not the fact that it happened, but that he had shared it with one wife, his most recent partner, and kept it from the others. It wasn't about the story itself, it was about who he trusted with it. That kind of selective vulnerability struck her as a betrayal. Why her? Why only Robin? What made her worthy of hearing intimate stories while the rest were left in the dark? It begged a deeper question. Had their bond started long before anyone knew? Had they already formed a connection that the others were never allowed to see? There were no direct accusations, just questions that had been quietly plaguing her for years. Why was he always at her house? Why was he so at ease in a bedroom that didn't exist in his primary residence? Why did their dynamic appear to be founded on privileges no one else received? These weren't jealous things, they were habits. Habituated patterns of behavior, emotional tics that became emotional betrayals. She recalled evenings, sleeping late, putting on a show of still being emotionally available, even when his heart had moved on. She recalled the little cues, the glances, the empty spaces, the secrets. All of them were mile markers on a path that gradually carried her further away. Robin naturally protested that she had done nothing wrong. Her account differed entirely. In her version, boundaries were not crossed. She asserted that there was no bodily contact prior to their engagement, no steamy moments in private. Their first kiss, she asserted, occurred in 2010, and it was not even memorable, just embarrassing, fleeting, and entirely pure. Just church kisses, she referred to them, moments of self-control, symbols of purity in the presence of their pastor. But that narrative didn't quite ring true for the woman left behind. There were too many blanks, too many cutouts, too much deliberate, blinkered innocence. She wasn't gesturing to one night or one moment, she was gesturing to the whole narrative arc, to the cycle of exclusion, of only ever being given fragments of a man who had already given himself whole to someone else. And that type of omission, that silence, that's a betrayal in itself. She wasn't grieving the loss of her marriage anymore. She had already moved on. What continued to sting, even after all these years, was the confirmation of something she had always known but never been told directly, that she had been kept out by design. She wasn't seeking sympathy. She wasn't trying to regain him. She simply desired the truth to be recognized, that no matter her dedication, her sacrifices, her emotional work, she had only ever been supplied with leftovers from what he so freely gave some other person. And now that she views it clearly, she's not turning back. It wasn't merely about falling in love, it was about the way it happened, how quietly, how secretly, how selectively. The secrecy was not an accident, it was deliberate, or at least convenient. And for Christine, that silence did more than all the words ever could. When you love someone and they change the rules behind your back, that's not love. It's control, disguised as devotion. Together, Janelle and Christine weren't merely describing broken marriages, they were revealing a heritage of half-truths, guilt manipulation, and selective honesty. And at the fore of it all stood a man who, to this day, seemed more interested in defining the story than in admitting the devastation he'd caused. Janelle's anger wasn't reactive, it was justified. Anger at being silenced. Anger at being diminished. Anger that, after all of it, he still attempted to manipulate the narrative for himself. She had been quiet for too long. The editing had to cease now, the airbrushing, the gaslighting, the emotional math that never added up. By the time the conversation was over, there was nothing left for her to defend, not the facade of a family united, not the fantasy of equality, and certainly not the man who once loved her but never constructed for her a home. This wasn't a dismantling, it was a reclaiming. She addressed him not as an aggrieved wife, but as a woman emerging from the mists. Janelle was assertive. This was not a tale of one shattered relationship. It was about identifying patterns of emotional manipulation, of conditional love, of favoritism masquerading as fidelity. It was about knowing when a cycle needs to break, even if the world is witnessing. And when asked if reconciliation was possible, with him or with the woman he placed above all others, Janelle didn't flinch. Her answer was stark and liberating. I just don't like them, and that's okay. I've earned the right not to like people who hurt me. It was the kind of truth that doesn't ask for permission. Yes, the betrayal was painful. Yes, the confessions were biting. But this was freedom, not revenge, not anger, just clarity. A clarity she hadn't experienced back in those early days when she, along with the others, was attracted to his charm. He could light up a room, convince you anything was possible. But that charm, she now understood, was without consistency, without genuine emotional presence, without follow-through that love requires. He had that energy, she said, the kind that leads you to believe things will work. She isn't bitter, she's awake. She doesn't regret the children, the memories, or the life she lived. But she will no longer shield a truth that was never mutual. She no longer bears guilt that doesn't belong to her. And she's not alone. Christine also spoke what so many had intuited, that the discretion around his last, now beloved relationship was always deceitful. The narrative being advanced, the one of divine timing and heavenly sparks, was not being lived by the women who had been everything, only to be informed they were not enough. The hurt wasn't the love, it was the do-over, the narrative where they were relegated to side characters in a romance they never agreed to leave behind. And now, with fearlessness and poise, they're reclaiming their narrative, raw, unedited, and unapologetically authentic, hiding it from the rest of us. That's not a relationship, it's a betrayal. What Christine said wasn't just echoing Janelle, it was affirming her. The secret fondness, the favored treatment, the personal emotional confessions. They didn't just dissolve ties, they deformed trust. This wasn't about wives left behind, it was about women being deceived, gaslighted, and manipulated for the pleasure of another person's spiritual storyline. And then, the ultimate revelation, the guy in the middle of it all, the one who used to talk in sermons about unity and sacrifice, finally uttered the words that shifted the view for all of them. I fell in love, hard. No divine rationale, and no mention of balance or mutual devotion, just a bare truth. But too late for the women who constructed lives with a foundation already cracked. Too late for the ones who waited, compromised, and had the version of love they were being sold. For others, that admission may have provided a sliver of closure, But to others, it reopened wounds that had only just begun to scar over. And the question remains, if they had known the truth then, if they had seen the full story and not the edited one, what would they have done? What parts of themselves might they have saved? This wasn't just a finale, it was a reckoning, and for Janelle, Christine, and the many who related, it was the start of a new truth. Thank you for watching this in-depth dive into the emotional breakdown behind one of the most dramatic season finales to date. If this story resonated with you or opened your eyes, go ahead and like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update. We deconstruct stories that matter, not just the headlines, but the heart behind them. More interviews, more behind-the-scenes secrets, and more truth soon to come.